My wife and I were in our bedroom in our suburban house. It was 3 a.m., interestingly enough, and we had two cats. They were quite well-behaved cats. And all of a sudden, we were awakened by these two cats fiercely fighting each other, to the point that they were scratching and clawing each other, going at each other like prize fighters, and we had to separate them. And we really didn't know what was going on. As it turned out, the next morning, actually to my annoyance, the priest brought this woman to my house. And Julia looks at me with a smirk and says, out of the blue, "Oh, hi, Dr. Gallagher. Nice to meet you. By the way, how did you like those cats last night?"
I just made a major announcement with Jimmy Akin. Check the description. What I'd like to turn to is the case that you discuss in the book with Julia. It was one of the more captivating accounts that you describe, especially at the very beginning, your introduction to her. Why don't you go ahead and explain the experience that you had with your cats for the audience?
I mean, I did highlight this case of a woman I called Julia. All the facts in that chapter are 100% accurate, other than the fact that I don't say where she's from. She was not from the New York area. There were three amazing aspects of the case, which is one of the reasons I highlighted it in the book. And as a matter of fact, it's one of the reasons that they're making a Hollywood movie out of her. So long story short, it's a fascinating case. It was fascinating to me because even in the view of the exorcist, including this Father Jacques as well as another guy, they said to me, "Rich, this is a once-in-a-century case." I mean, even for a possession, this is the most flamboyant case they had ever seen. So I knew I was dealing with, I mean, I had to verify it myself, being a little skeptical. Having said that, it became obvious to me very quickly that she was possessed. I saw her in possessed states. Number two, and as an explanation for why this happened to her, and she knew she was possessed. She was a fairly intelligent woman, not highly educated, but intelligent. She was possessed because she was one of these rare Satanists. I mentioned earlier, Cameron, that there sometimes is exaggeration about Satanists, but this was the real deal. This was one of the real cult Satanist members, not a nice bunch, who literally worship Satan. And since she did literally worship Satan, she was somewhat surprised that she became possessed. Interestingly, she wanted to get rid of the possession while remaining a Satanist. Which is a contradiction in terms. I mean, you can't seek help to get an exorcism while you're going to remain a Satan worshiper. So basically, the priest, again, this Father Jacques, wanted me to evaluate her, not because he was unclear about her being possessed. He and several other mental health professionals had already confirmed to their satisfaction that she was possessed. But because she was ambivalent about getting help, as I said, she wanted to be relieved of her possession. On the other hand, she did not want to leave the cult. So this was obviously a problem. You might say it was a type of ambivalence. And they wanted me to talk to her and discuss that with her and see if there were, also psychological or emotional reasons why she was remaining with the cult. So I came to know her quite well. And I would say a third amazing fact about this case is she did treat me honestly and respectfully. At the end of our working together, she said to me specifically, she said, "Well, Dr. Gallagher, I know you've tried to be very helpful to me. If you want, you can write about this case and talk about this case. Just protect my name and my identity." The long and the short of it, when I first met her, I think that was part of your question, Cameron. My wife and I were in our bedroom in our suburban house, and it was 3 a.m., interestingly enough. The two
How
cats,
long ago was this? Sorry to cut in.
this is a little more now than 25 years or so. We've always had pets, and we had two cats, and they used to sleep at the end of our bed. They were quite well-behaved cats. Cats can be a little ornery, but they were on the gentle and well-behaved side. And all of a sudden, we were awakened by these two cats fiercely fighting each other. Never seen ever before or since, to the point that they were scratching and clawing each other, going at each other like prize fighters, and we had to separate them. And we really didn't know what was going on. I mean, was this catnip or had they eaten something bad? We chalked it up to some kind of natural cause. As it turned out, the next morning, actually to my annoyance, the priest brought this woman, whom I called Julia, to my house. I later told him in no uncertain terms, do not bring Satanists to my neighborhood, okay? So they ring the doorbell. I trudge down the stairs, and Father Jacques, somewhat sheepishly, says to me, well, Dr. Gallagher, I'd like to introduce you to this woman I've been telling you about, Julia. And Julia looks at me with a smirk and says, out of the blue, oh, hi, Dr. Gallagher. Nice to meet you. By the way, how did you like those cats last night? Now, you can imagine I was taken aback. I was taken aback so much by her comment that I didn't really express to her the annoyance I had if she had anything to do with this. I'm thinking, how is this possible that she knew that? I'd never met her before. So anyway, that was the start of my dealings with the Satanist Julia. We had many conversations. She exhibited a lot of, even outside of her possessed trances, she exhibited a lot of, let's call it, psychic abilities. What is a good example? For instance, she would often tell me that she had the ability of what the parapsychological crowd calls remote viewing. In other words, they claim there's this kind of occult third eye in their mind, and they can see people at a distance. It's all kind of occult mumbo jumbo, but it's a real phenomenon in certain people, often people who are occultists, as she was. So she had told me about this a couple of times, and then once she said, I can see the chief exorcist at the moment. The chief exorcist was, I'm 6'5". I'm a big guy. This guy was even made me look small. He was a 6'7" ex-Marine. He was going to be the chief exorcist on the case, not Father Jacques. And she said, well, I can see, he called himself Father A. It was kind of a nom de guerre, a sort of a pseudonym for, because he wanted to remain anonymous. Again, people know who it was if they really know the scene at the time in America, but I continue to call him by the name he used, Father A. So she said, I can see Father A at a distance. I knew where he was. He was 100 miles away, and he usually lived at this, rectory. I said, yeah, what is he doing? And Julia said to me, well, he's walking along a beach not far from his house, and he's saying I think she said he's saying his mumbo jumbo prayers. By that she meant he's saying his daily breviary, divine office, which priests say. And I said, what is he wearing? And she said, well, he has a blue windbreaker on, and he has khaki pants. I mean, there's absolutely no way she would know that. And I said to her, I think I could joke around a little bit with her at the time. I said, well, Julia, Miss Smarty Pants, I'm going to call him on the cell phone right now. So I called him, and he didn't know why I was calling. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm usually at the rectory, but I decided I would take a little drive to the beach and say my prayers, the divine office, walking along the beach. And I said, and what are you wearing? And he said something to me like, who wants to know? And I said, just humor me, Father. He said, well, I have a windbreaker. What color? Blue. And I have my khakis on. And it actually dawned on him, because he knew I was in the process of evaluating Julia. He said, "Oh, I know, Rich, what's going on. You're talking to Julia, and she's describing me, right?" He said she would have no way of knowing what I was doing. And I said, "Yes, yes, Paul, that's a very good guess on your part."